and is unbelievable. I mean, to me, off-road racing, I've said in the past, the first off-road racers were really our pioneers that came from the East Coast over to the West Coast back in the early days, on buckboards and stagecoaches and by horseback. Yeah. And then we found the Baja Peninsula, which Rod Hall, as we know, a great racer, and I can't take the honors for saying this, but Rod said it one day to me. He says, when God created the Baja, he created it for off-road racing, and that's really what I think happened down there. It was just such a beautiful place to put off-road racing on because it was untamed. There were no real roads. There was no infrastructure, so to speak, and they were looking for something that would bring. They don't even have football, basketball. They didn't have soccer. They had a boat race from Newport Beach to Ensenada. Other than that, there was nothing really adventurous. No one was really going down there. Cabo San Lucas was not what it was. It was a little fishing village at the tip. And the governor at that time, Milton Castellano, he saw the future, and he saw that the Americans like Mickey and myself that had vehicles and that could drive and find the land, which other people, the Mexicans, they were still riding. I'm not being negative, but they didn't go south. They were going north. They wanted to get to the border to the U.S. Yeah. And they didn't have the vehicles we had. They didn't know what a 4-wheel drive vehicle was. They had jalopies down there. So we really pioneered, and opened up the territory of Baja. And I think to have that opportunity to be a pioneer, because the pioneers, most of them get eaten at the pass, and I'm still alive, And so I really think that opportunity of, first of all, seeing the land that was created by obviously God, and then to have the privilege of meeting governors, and I've been back to the White House, or Pino Sola, which is the White House in Mexico City, for 3 different presidents, and having the pleasure of being their guest and actually staying in some of their resort homes because of what SCORE was doing in off-road racing to the economy and building the tourism for Mexico. That, I think, when I really I could go through so many crazy stories and everything, but you caught me a little off guard here,
yeah, sure.
and it obviously you brought something up that I don't think about every day, and I've got to say, I don't think I've ever said this before. I really do think that unique experience for me of seeing the land, meeting the people the way I was able to meet, from the ranch hand to a guy living out in a cardboard box, to the presidents of Mexico and governors and secretaries of tourism, and then being a part of their culture. Because I didn't go there as an American. I went there as wanting to be one of them, and be mixed into their same exciting days. I never went in there and was condescending. I was there as part of what they were doing, and I never made them feel that I was going to make them famous. They were really helping me become a better person and giving me an opportunity to have a job, which I never saw as a job, and having a great time. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm sure I've got 1,000 stories that I could say, yeah, I remember this. And, I could go on our experience of the great opportunity that you gave me in racing in the Nora race a couple of years ago on the beautiful Chevrolet that you have, and what we went through,
Yeah.
As I've always said too, in order to be on the podium, you got to get to the finish line. You can't talk about being a winner unless you can make it to the finish line. And there's a lot of ways to make it to the finish line. You got to, first of all, drive the terrain the way it's supposed to be driven. You can't go 50 when you're supposed to be going 10, and you need to go 60 when you're going 30. But we had a little engine problem, but we did get to the finish line, and you made sure that we got on that podium, even though it wasn't in the time limit.
Yeah.
Well, it was in the time limit. We just took some detours,
yes,
right, Jim?
We took a few detours. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know. For me, I'll never forget the smile on your face when we arrived at that finish line. And actually, the funny part is we weren't technically on the podium yet. And you said, Jim, I can't believe we're at the finish line. I said, well, we're not. It's still another 50 feet ahead of us because there was such a line of finishers. But, you touched on a few things. And yeah, by the way, you answered my question probably better than anybody else on the planet could answer it in terms of being a part of that pioneering crew that was down there in Baja. And I like to talk about for myself how it seems like all my greatest memories and greatest opportunities in my life came after I got to know Baja, after I got to know people like yourself and Cameron Steele, who really embraced me coming down there. And the people down there are so warm and endearing. And like you said, to integrate yourself within their culture and not the opposite, what a wonderful experience that is down there. I'm not going to put you on the spot again, but I would love for you just to give us an overall view of the friendships you've created, because I know I've made so many friends through Baja and through racers, and there's no exchange in life for the friendships that I've made in Baja and because of racing. What's your overview on the friendships you've made down there?
Well, Jim, you really triggered something, as normally happens when someone's talking to me, and it brings in another idea. I was talking, and because of the question you asked, about the culture and the Hispanic people. But, I just realized, my God, I left out an equally unbelievable part of the people and the friendships, the long-lasting, over 50-year friendships of the competitors that came down to my event, from movie stars to celebrities to fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, business tycoons, you name it, that have competed in the Baja events. And I had the pleasure of meeting them on a not a celebrity basis, but they were coming athletes, that can't do anything other than what they do in their sport. The thrill of saying, I came down to the Baja, and I had the opportunity to meet them on a different level than you normally meet, the McQueens and James Garner, and, the regular, Cameron Steele and his great dad, who I used to race with, that just unfortunately passed away, Big Daddy. And I mean, you name it. I mean, the numbers is like a who's in all forms of business, athletes, movie stars. People have competed down there, and I have the privilege of meeting them because of being the head of Score International. And these friendships have lasted really a lifetime with some of these people, like yourself. How did I meet you originally? Because of your tie-in in the liquor industry. And here we are all these years later, still friends and able to communicate. And I really do think that it's such a crossover. Here I've been talking about Baja and Mexico, and, meeting the presidents and things like that. Well, I was honored with Linda Vaughn, the Easy Rider Group, and I'm trying to think who else. And we were brought back to Washington, D.C. With Congress, and they gave us an award because of our outstanding contribution in motorsports. And that was given to me because, and I'm looking at it in my home office here, a beautiful crystal award that was presented by Congress. So it's been a crazy life, and the people. I mean, it's a who's who of people from all over the world. I mean, Russian competitors, the first motorsports race that in competition that the Russians entered in one of their old Ladas, which is just a piece of crap, they came over here. I mean, people from almost every country in the world. And here, all the people in the United. I mean, it's crazy, and I'm getting kind of emotional just talking about this right now because I think it was Ricky Johnson, I think, that said it in the Dust to Glory movie. I mean, look at the movies. We have a movie. Yeah. I mean, God, said it was either here. Bruce Myers that said, if we knew we were making history at the time, we would have maybe done it a little differently,
Yeah.
God, we were just out there winging it. There was no rules. There was no, where do you go to become, where's the school? Where's 101 school of how do you become an off-road promoter? I mean, what is that? Who is that?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely
I think
right.
I veered off of your question, but it's been a unique experience, and it's given me an opportunity to meet people that on my own, with just as Sal Fish graduated from the University of San Francisco, I probably never, ever, I would have read about them and saw them in magazines or heard people talk about, but I never would have had the opportunity to shake their hand at the start or finish line and actually meet them and them, talk to me and know who I am and things of that nature. And that goes from the littlest guy, which I would call, the racer. Yeah, as you know, Jim, I treated them all the same, whether you're a celebrity or a mom and pop with their son building a class Baja Bug like I drove. As far as I was concerned, they were, as important, if not more so than, the celebrities, because, they were what really made up off-road racing.
Yeah. Well, gosh, I could spend about 8 more hours talking to you and sharing with you. So I'm gonna have to commit you to being on the show again. But I want to leave it on those memories and the friendships that you just talked about, because I think it's such an important part of Baja. And you find yourself in a small town eating tacos or whatever it is you're doing, and you're meeting people, and those people will be your friends for life, because I guarantee if you stop back in that town, they'll remember you, and you had created some type of memory with them, and they're family for life. And that's what I love about Baja, and that's what I love about the people that go down there. You talk about the racers and all the wonderful people you've met over the years. I'm going to have the pleasure to spend a couple days with Mark Post in Mexico later this week. And he's just one of those guys, in business world, he's probably extremely untouchable, but in the Baja world, he's just like everybody else. And I've enjoyed spending time with him, and I'll get to do that again. And I know you have so many stories like that.
Well, you're exactly right. You mentioned, I mean, how could I even begin? You talk about a Mark Post, you talk about the Herbses. I mean, there's just so many outstanding families, and that's one of the great things about the sport of off-road racing. It's a family type thing. You've got the McMillans, you got the Wilsons, and I'm just naming a few. You got 3 and 4 generations that grew up around me. You know what I mean, so to speak. I've got pictures of them as a kid on their grandfather's shoulders at the start or finish line, and now their kids and their kids are at the start finish line. It's just spectacular. It really is. And the people, as you said, the people of Mexico itself, first of all, are one of a kind. They're just beautiful people. But then you bring in all of the people that encompass the off-road scene. And, it isn't all great either, let's face it. I don't want to sound like Pollyanna here, but, this was, yes, I never call it a job because it was such an adventure. I said, I was doing what most people are dreaming about all week. They could only do it on the weekends. I was doing it every day of my life. But, let me tell you, it wasn't easy, like anything else. But when you enjoy doing something and you put your passion and your heart into it, it was my life. That was what it is. It was, rather. And, and it still is, to be honest with you. I love the friendships I've made in the United States, around the world. In fact, I am taking a trip just this coming Monday. I'm leaving for a rally in Sicily that has been organized with a vintage group of Europeans, and I'm the only American that's going to be on this thing, and I'm going to compete with a friend of mine, Yves Moretz, who is the owner of Stand 21 from France, who I've met through off-road racing, and he invited me to be his co-rider just like you did at the Nora event, and we're going to ride 11-day circle around Sicily in a 1952 Jag convertible, which is his.
Wow.
And it's one, it did compete in the Mille Mille Italian event years ago. And, things like that have given me the opportunity to do things that I would have never been able to do on my own. But as a result of, the hard work, I will admit, and the love that I have for Baja, it opened so many doors for me, that I'll never forget that. I'll tell you that.
Well, we really appreciate that, Sal. And I don't think any of us racers we'll forget the fact that you're at every starting line, you're at every finish line with a smile on your face, welcoming us, and whether